Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. In this video I've put together a solo which includes 4 different techniques that you can use to add some extra speed and maybe a bit of flash to your playing without going down the full shred route. Now we're going to be focusing in on the triplet rhythm and legato playing. The first couple of techniques are pretty straightforward for any intermediate player and the next 2 are a bit more tricky, but they just need a bit of practice to get there. So let's get into it.
You can download the tab and backing track for this lesson using the link in the description.
So this first technique I call the Hexatonic Triplet. So played a little slower, the first lick of our solo goes like this. And what we're going to be focusing on is this repeating pattern in the middle here. Now I call this a hexatonic lick because what we're doing is taking a basic pentatonic pattern and adding in 1 extra note which makes it hexatonic. And adding in that 1 extra note is going to enable us to change the rhythm from a straight 1-2-1-2 into a triplet 1-2-3-1-2-3, which allows us to play 50% extra notes, and it's actually not that tricky to do. So first let's look at the pattern played straight without that hexatonic note, and then we'll add it in after and bring in that triplet rhythm. So we're in the key of B minor, playing over a B minor chord here using the B minor pentatonic. And the pattern is going to look like this. So 10th fret on the high E, pull off to 7, and then 10th on the B, and then back to 7 on the high E. One, two, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so that's the basic pattern. Now let's add in the extra note, which is going to be here, 9th fret on the high E. And what we're going to do is pull off down these 3 notes on the high E in a triplet rhythm. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then play the next 2 notes just the same as before in a straight rhythm, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And you see, by adding in that extra note, we add in quite a lot of extra speed, and it's really not too difficult to do. Just practice getting these pull-offs timed nicely. And there you have a lot of extra speed into your solo for not much extra effort. For our second technique, let's look at descending scale triplets. So now the track's moved on to a G chord, and our next lick, played slowly, sounds like this. So this is a really simple concept that you can use with any scale on any string to add in quite a quick run down the scale using this triplet rhythm. So all I'm doing is starting here at the 14th fret on the high E, and then pluck that note, hammer onto the next scale note which is at the 15th fret, and then pull off again in a triplet rhythm, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so once we've done that, all I do is descend down the scale using that same pattern. So 1, 2, 3, and then down to the 12th on the high E. Same pattern with the 14th. Hammer on, pull off, and then down to the 10th. Pluck, hammer, pull off, pluck, hammer, pull off, the 9th and 10th, and then the 7th and the 9th. Pluck, hammer, pull off, and then end on this note, 10th fret of the B string, with a couple of bends up to the B root note. And just get that triplet feel in. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And just a little tip on this, as you come down and make those position shifts, just release the pressure on the string a little bit so you get a more clean shift from the positions. on to the third technique, and let's look at a repeating legato pattern. So the next chord in our track is an A, and the lick we're going to play over it, play slowly, is this. And so the way you can think of a lick like this is when you get a chord progression like A, D, A7 like that you might play in the blues, we're outlining a very similar concept to that, just using this pattern in this lick here. So the pattern we're playing is going to look like this. Starting at the 2nd fret on the B string, we're going to pluck, and then hammer onto the 3rd, and then pull off to the 2nd again in a triplet rhythm. 1, 2, 3, pluck, hammer, pull, 1, 2, 3. And then up to the 5th fret on the B string, pluck, and then pull off to the 3rd, and pull off to the 2nd in a triplet rhythm. Pluck, pull, pull. So all together. Okay, so once we've got that, we can move this pattern up to the next set of scale notes. So whereas here, starting on the C sharp here, we're nicely outlining the A chord, we're going to move up to the 3rd fret now and play the same pattern with the 5th and 7th frets, which is nicely going to outline a D chord. And then up again to the 5th, 7th and 8th frets. Same pattern, which outlines a A7 chord. And then bigger bend at the end, which is just from a G up to an A, so the root note of the chord. Now, this is pretty tricky, does take some practice, so just take your time, try and get it clean. It's easy to get lots of other strings ringing out, but just really work on playing that nice and cleaned. For the fourth and final technique, let's look at some triplet stings. So the chord progression rounds off with E minor up to G and then resolving back to the B minor. And the lick we're going to play over those chords, played nice and slowly, is like this. Now, the tricky thing here is keeping these rhythms accurate as the lick gets up to speed. So we start with some simple pentatonic notes, a bend up at the 10th fret on the B string, and then back down, and then 7 and 9 on the G, and all of that played with a straight rhythm, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then we're into these triplet stings, which are the tricky bit, which go like this. So what's going on here? We start at the 9th fret on the G string, pluck, slide up to the 10th, and then quickly back down to the 9th, and then pull off to the 7th. So it's 9, 10, 9, 7. But the rhythm here is a little bit tricky, particularly at speed. So what we're doing is playing a triplet, but the middle note, the second note, we're subdividing again into 2. So it's 1, 2 and 3. 1, 2 and 3. 1, 2 and 3. And then what I'm playing is 9th fret on the D string and 7th fret on the G string, and playing those straight again. So there's a bit of a change in rhythm there to compete with. So it's 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2, 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2, 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2. And then what I'm going to do is move this down, starting here at the 6th fret. So we're starting on a C sharp, so it's like the 9th of the scale. It's exactly the same rhythm, 1, 2 and 3, and then 7th fret on the D string, and then resolve back to the 4th fret, this B here on the G string. 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2. So 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2, 1, 2 and 3, 1, 2. Now, not too bad at that pace, but you know, up with the full speed of the track, that gets quite challenging and really does need some practice. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching and see you next time.